Hi everyone, I'm here with Lizzie Phillips from I Want to Network. Hi Lizzie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for making the time. I appreciate it.
You're more than welcome.
Um, Lizzie, I wanted to start just by asking you, I Want to Network. Tell me about that.
Sure. So I Want to Network has been going a little while, but I've been running networking events since 2007. I Want to Network actually has two elements to it. It's a networking organisation. We predominantly kind of focus on the London area, where we like to do quirky and unusual networking events or networking in unusual places. So we have our I Want to Network London Pass, where people can network in, for example, this month we've done axe throwing, we did the London Dungeons, but we also do things like breakfast at the Savoy, networking on Go Boat, which is just down the Canary Wharf Thames, breakfast at Dijume, and London attractions like Tower Bridge, Kensington Palace. So yeah, we like to do things differently. But we also do more traditional networking, which is online. And we like to do more international type networking. So people that want to do networking with those in London, realistically.
Okay, so tell me about the networking itself. When the people are axe throwing or going on a boat or whatever the events are, how have they come to be in that place, in that networking environment? What's driven them there? Um,
Yeah, good
what
question.
have they signed up to? What are they trying to achieve? And
Yeah,
what
what are they
kind of
expecting?
profile? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think yeah, let's go back to like networking in general. So there's like loads of different types of networking. There's anything from structured networking, which is typically where you do your 1 minute business pitch, and it's more business, um, sort of a more of a traditional business meeting style, boardroom style. But you also right from the other extreme to more coffee morning type informal networking, where you grab yourself a coffee and it's up to you to kind of do the networking. So the type of people that come to us are kind of like a bit of a blend of the two, where they want to do more focused networking. So their main aim is to come to something where they feel they're driving and moving their business forward, without having to worry about it being too stuffy. I think post-COVID, we've seen a really dramatic shift in people wanting to go out and have that interaction. Doesn't necessarily have to be face to face. There's still a need for online networking. There's still a place for it. But I think people are wanting to do business with other people, and predominantly that's what networking is all about. If you go back to um, one of your mates might ask you, oh right, okay, my boiler's broken down, can you give us a good recommendation for a good plumber? Yeah, so yeah, that is networking at its lowest level, is kind of that good recommendation of somebody else that you know, like and trust, that you can recommend to somebody else. So going back to your question, people go there ultimately to grow their business. So even if they are, it's not their own business, it might be they're an employee of a business. They are tasked with a view of developing themselves or the business in itself.
Okay. Great. All right. Well,
That's a long
that's
answer, wasn't it? So
no, I think it's one of those things. Networking people, the perception of networking is seen in so many different ways, and so it's good to talk about kind of the different areas and things, and when we'll get into that a little bit more. But what I also wanted to understand, Lizzie, is obviously this is a podcast aimed at people interested in franchising. That's
yeah,
at whatever level. They could be business owners looking to franchise their business. They could be people who don't like their job and want to become a franchisee or take a franchise. They could be
yeah,
existing franchisors that are looking to
yeah.
continue to grow. There could be companies in the UK looking to expand internationally. So it's the kind of the whole gamut, really. And I wanted to understand what your background is, if any, in franchising, and when you first came across franchising, not in the McDonald's and films franchise, sports franchises kind of a way, but the actual business format franchising that we're really talking about.
Yeah, so both my parents ran their own business when I was younger. My dad still does in engineering. So kind of had a good understanding from doing a business studies degree anyway, franchising. But my very first experience, I suppose, is at the age of 16, I used to work in Snappy Snaps, which I think is still a franchise. But for those that aren't familiar with Snappy Snaps, it's when you had to go and process your photographs. And I was one of the weekend sales assistant, but also used to develop the photographs. And being a franchise, they had lots of different stores, but it's interesting because I'll come on to the other experience I've had recently, but it's only since my experience at Snappy Snacks made me realise just how good they were as a franchise in terms of their, not just their delivery, but also the fact that everything was joined up in terms of branding. So you wouldn't have known it was a franchise. That's what fascinates me even to this day, realistically. I know you mentioned McDonald's, but typically what I've had previously in other franchises is that they're not consistent, is what I'm trying to say in a long way. And that's one of the advantages of being in part of a franchise, is that it is consistent. There's the way that they did sales, the way that you presented yourself, the way that you addressed the customer when they came in, and all the way through to how the photographs were processed, all the way to when that customer leaves. It was exactly the same journey, whether you were in a store in Chelmsford, up in the north, to the one in London. In fact, I worked in the Chelmsford store right up to the age of going to university, and then kindly the person that ran the franchise store in Chelmsford introduced me to someone in the London store. They took me on when I was at university, and it was exactly the same, and I loved it for that. Although it was quite quirky because it was in London, in fact, it was in Chelsea. So you can imagine quite a diverse, different type of customer that comes along. But the actual process and the way that you address customers was brilliant. They were very, very good with their staff members in terms of incentives. So this is going back a good 25 years ago now here though, Duggan. They used to incentivize you if you got a customer to upgrade their package. And you had to sell 10 of those and you got an extra £5, which as a 16-year-old was a lot of money. But if you did the whole suite, then you got £20. And they were really good at the camaraderie with franchising. That's one thing I find interesting about franchising. So there was always a league table of the different Snappy Snaps and the different branches and how well each one was doing. When the magazine Which came in to do who was the best in terms of photograph, they did a survey on different photograph shops and who was the best in terms of development. One year, our store actually was the one that was part of the survey, and we came top in the country. And we had different Snappy Snaps ringing us to say congratulations. And to me, it's about being that camaraderie of feeling that you're part of something. So it's interesting because I know you've had Jacqueline on your podcast, who's part of Athena. So I used to be part of the Women in Business Network franchise. And you were saying about a moment ago about whether you're somebody that wants to be part of become a franchisee. Now, the reason why I became part of the Women in Business Network, I was there for 10 years. I started in 2013. I started off as a member. I ran a marketing consultancy and found it incredibly lonely. Really enjoyed the work, enjoyed the job, but found it just really, really lonely working on my own. There was no such thing as a co-working space then. So I worked in a very tiny spare bedroom in my flat. And I actually went to Women in Business Network because I wanted other people to kind of bounce off. Loved it so much that decided or started to look into becoming a franchisee. And again, it was that security, I suppose, of knowing that I'm tapping into something that has worked really well previously, and wanted to be part of something bigger, without the worry of, is this going to work? Do I need to create something? Now, I left that franchise in 2022, for lots of different reasons, but I still got really good fond memories of being part of that bigger picture, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. So and what where did you go from there? Like, so what I want to, I suppose what I want to know is in terms of I want to franchise, sorry, I want to network, I want to franchise.
Well, that's another one. You could start off with that. There we go.
Yeah, I've got franchising on the brain. Um and but yeah, so I want to network. What made you look at that and say, well, this is the kind of model that would suit me in the area which obviously you focus mainly on, as you say, London and externally. But yeah.
Yeah, so I want to network. As I said, I've been doing networking events since 2007 anyway. In fact, predominantly they were more property and construction focused because my mom and dad were in interior design, antiques, and engineering, so it kind of naturally kind of moved into that element. But I wanted to do more mixed networking. I wanted to do more London focused attractions. I just realized that it was just something that I was really passionate about at the time. There is an element with networking. It kind of goes back to, there's loads of different types of networking events out there. There's just hundreds and thousands of different groups and different networking. And one of the things I would say to people is go out there and do a bit of shopping, see what works for you. So I do Women in Business Network, and Athena is women only, whereas I do mixed networking. And again, there's not a right or wrong when it comes to networking. It's very much about what suits you, your brand, and of course your what you want to get from it. And I always say that networking is just another form of marketing. So you wouldn't go into a Facebook ad campaign without knowing what you want to get from it. So, it's a marketing investment is what I'm trying to say. So see it as a marketing investment rather than something that you feel that you need to do.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And we in franchising, a big part of the ecosystem, if you like, is franchisors advising their franchisees on how to, in their local environment, because typically, the model is they become a franchisee in their local area, serving a local area with exclusivity by postcode, which is either based on marketing or whatever they're doing. So, and it's all about generating inquiries, whatever those inquiries are,
Generating the leads, yeah.
and then converting those inquiries, of course, into customers or clients, depending on what the business is. And I think one thing I definitely see a lack of is advice and support around how to advise those franchisees to
That's true.
network to network
Yeah,
and because and I guess what I often see is just saying, oh, look at local networking groups and look to join up, look at local business networking groups and look to join up and commit some time to doing that, so that in your local community and business owners, people can start to understand who you are and what you do and what you offer. Um, but it's very rare that you see anyone actually actively doing it. And then there's so many that do it who don't get anywhere quickly, and then they think, oh, it's a waste of time. And so I wanted to ask you, I guess this is a general question about networking. If I'm a franchisee in Norwich,
yeah,
and I've just launched my business, but my business is a franchise business. So it doesn't really matter. It's the same question if I'm an independent business owner or I'm a
absolutely.
franchisee. Um, What are your tips to me? Like, what are you saying to me I should be doing? What's my best approach? I've never really networked before. I don't or feel entirely comfortable. It's I'm new to owning a business because I've come out of
Yeah,
employment
okay.
and everything else. And so talk me through what you would say to me. Like, how would I start that process to get networking?
Yeah, so I think you need to think about what you would like to get from it. So a lot of people go into networking thinking it's about the sales, but actually they stay for something other than just the sales. There needs to be another reason as to why you're going to be doing it. We're all incredibly busy as business owners, let's face it. So one, it needs to be productive. And it might well be that it's about the community that you're part of. It might be that you want to bounce off other people in terms of their experience. It might well be that you are an introvert. In fact, we've done a couple of articles recently about networking for introverts because they do network quite a bit differently. So it kind of stems down to, it could be down to your personality, or it could be down to what you would like to get from it. But I always say, have at least 3 different reasons why you're going. And then maybe, say for example, number 1 is leads, inquiries, like you said. You need 3 goals that kind of comes underneath that. So lots of people just say sales, inquiries, leads. But delve deeper. If you are an accountant, for example, again, could be part of a franchise. It might well be that you want 3 inquiries that are in the property and construction industry, 3 inquiries from the creative industry. Be really specific is what I'm trying to say. Going back to that whole ethos of, if you were again going to invest that money or time into something else, what would you want to get from it? Also, I mean, there's loads of different my go-to on any form of events is Eventbrite.
Yeah.
Check out all the different things that are going on. As I said, try a few. Don't feel like you've got to stick to one. And see what you enjoy, whether you prefer the informal, whether you prefer the structured, whether you want to try something where you've got more referral based and you've so for example, introverts tend to find that more structured networking works better for them, because they feel a bit more safe in terms of somebody else providing those connections for you. So they would probably prefer more of a boardroom style session, whereas an extrovert, if you're the polar extreme, then a face-to-face session that's a bit more relaxed, that's a bit more informal, doesn't particularly faze them. In fact, they love it. So again, do you see what I mean? Again, it depends upon your personality, 2, perhaps your circumstances. Because for example, you might be a parent that needs to be home in time to pick the kids up from school, for example. So again, there's breakfast meetings, there's lunch meetings, there's ones without food, with food, online, offline. The world is your oyster when it comes to networking.
And Lizzie, how how would I then, as this small business owner in Norwich, how would I put a value on that directly? Because obviously, yeah, it's fine if I meet someone who then actually becomes a customer or client directly as
Yeah,
a result of that. That's easy. That's easy to say, wow, that's the measure. But so often networking is actually about getting to know a bunch of people who in turn know a bunch of people outside
yeah,
of the people that
exactly.
I know, and they might be talking about what I offer because it's more relevant to the people they know than themselves.
Yeah,
And then those people might just Google my business and come in, from the website or wherever else. And I may never know that there was a link with me networking to that inquiry coming through, which could then become a customer. And so I I also think that's part of the problem with networking is that it's really hard to
Not
sometimes see the
quantifiable.
value. Yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah,
you've got to do it consistently. You've got to show up.
yeah,
You've
you
got to
do.
turn up. You've got to. That's what networking is.
Yeah,
Depending on what kind of networking, but I'm talking about, I guess, more community networking, right? Where you're actually saying, hey, I offer a product or a service or both to the local community. Um,
yeah.
and I'm here to stay as well. And so you are putting yourself out there consistently. So what would you say? How do you gauge that? And how can you get the most value out of it without knowing that it's directly creating new customers or revenue for your business?
Yeah, so there's quite a few things in there. So number one, I always say networking, you don't start to see any form of results until at least 6 months, at least. In fact, we don't offer any memberships less than 6 months for that very reason. Particularly if you're going to a networking that's only once a month. Now, if you're only doing your 1 minute business pitch, that's 6 minutes in 6 months. So to give you an idea, it is whatever you put in is what you're going to get out of networking for sure.
Yeah.
So, for example, we do a LinkedIn pod on a Thursday. The more the people that are really active on it do one-to-ones. So one-to-ones is like a mini meeting with somebody to find out a little bit more about them. So again, it kind of stems to whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. In terms of being quantifiable, you could theoretically put use some form of special offer so you know whereabouts is coming from.
Yeah.
But I think consistency, going back to your consistency is the key. Somebody said to me recently, it's not about that. It's like people say, oh, I've got enough business now that I can stop. It's about having those, or the worst one is when people say, I don't need to network. I've got loads of business. I'm like, yeah, but the pandemic's taught us that anything can change at any time. So you need a pipeline, a continuous pipeline of people coming through.
Yes.
So I don't believe in that you're too busy to network. I really don't. I think you can always have the additional pipeline coming through so that if, for example, that customer that's been working with you for a long time moves on somewhere else, then you have that kind of safety net. But networking is kind of like a bit like a snowball effect. So you were saying everybody knows everybody else. So apparently there's a statistic that everybody in their little black book, for those that are old enough to remember the little black book, has 632 contacts each. So if you're going to a networking group that has about 10 people, you're automatically getting 6,000 contacts. Now, if you kind of multiply that in LinkedIn and everything else on top of that, you are kind of tapping into everybody else's contacts. I think it is a snowball effect. So, for example, if you start providing a service for one person in the group, it's normally that they would then recommend you to somebody else then recommends you to the next person, and then the next person. What I find, one of my frustrations with networking is everybody thinks that everybody in the group is going to buy from them. And the way to kind of position it is actually they are your sales and advocate team, marketing team, effectively. They're doing the marketing for you. So it's not them that's necessarily going to buy, it's that who they know and who the stepping stone might be to that customer. So I quite often see with some visitors who I have to say don't become members is that they poo-poo someone because they think that they are not going to buy from them. It's very narrow-minded. They don't necessarily think that they might know somebody that could be potentially their best customer ever. So you're kind of going with that open mind that everybody could be a potential customer, but just not maybe from them directly.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense, Lizzie. So, and I suppose the other one thing I did want to ask as well is, in terms of networking, how many different ways are there to pay for that? As in, are there drop-in kind of networking things where you can pay as you go? Are they all membership on a monthly membership? So you're committing
Yeah.
X amount per month? Are there requirements to attend a certain number of meetings? And if you don't, you're kicked out the club. But again, these are all the things that whenever I've networked or come across it, and I'm not a big networker, right? I'm not, and I and I haven't really been. I'm a people person, but I've never really been a big networker. So I ask all these questions actually genuinely interested myself. So it'd be good to hear from you because obviously you understand networking. Just just how all the networking businesses work and how flexible there is, it can be to be a member.
Yeah. So first of all, there's so many out there. So when it comes to from a franchising point of view, if you're buying a particular patch, for example, you will probably be governed by what's available in your local area. So typically, we've not mentioned BNI, but BNI are the largest networking organization in the world. I don't know how they operate now, but I think they do like a one free visit before signing up. The more informal networking organizations might have a trial basis, or may not even have a membership, might be just a pay-as-you-go element. What I would say, as in any form of business, you do get what you pay for sometimes. And realistically, networking should be coming out of your marketing budget. And again, it's you've got to see it as a marketing investment. I would say that so for example, in our organization, I do two visits before you have to become a member, or I invite you to become a member. I ask that the second visit is within 6 weeks of the first, and that's because I think that you can kind of overkill on trying lots of different networking, because and then become a little bit confused as to what might or might not work. So that's the reason why I put a time limit on the second visit. But most do some form of paid trial or free trial. So yeah, give it a go.
Yeah, good. No, yeah, no problem. And Lizzie, when at networking events, what are your suggestions for A, how to present yourself, B, what kind of plan should I go
Yeah, go
to,
with.
yeah, go
Yeah.
with, and how do I know when maybe I've been spending too long with one person? Because I think that's my problem. I could go to a networking event and I'll spend
Yeah.
the whole event talking to one person because
Okay.
I get interested in one person. Then I feel, I just feel
It's,
like
it's
a bit
it's like the
needed.
number one thing I get asked actually is like, how do I stop myself getting stuck, not just with one person, but somebody that without offending that person, you want to move on.
Yeah,
So let's talk about preparing for a networking event first of all, and then that will kind of follow. So I always say go or practice your 1 minute business pitch. Again, it extends to what type of networking that you're going to. So if you're going to a structured networking event, it's likely that you'll be asked to tell everybody in the room what you're ideally looking for. But actually, even if you're going to an informal networking event, there's something called the 7-second pitch. And it's a bit like if you go to a barbecue in the summer or a Christmas party, someone would just go, "Oh, so what is it that you do then?" And you effectively have to explain in one sentence, succinctly what you do and maybe what you are ideally looking for. Nobody likes a long spiel. So try and be as concise as you possibly can. In terms
yeah,
of what to wear, again, it depends on where you're going. In fact, somebody messaged me yesterday and said, how smart is it? Can I get away with trainers? I said, absolutely. Number one, you need to feel comfortable. Number two, you are representing your brand. So if, for example, you're again, that kind of stems back to what do you want to portray to somebody? If you are in the creative industry, you might want to do something that's quite memorable. or wear something again that's a little bit different. Some visitors sometimes come with a badge because they find that useful for people and provide their own badge. Some people, a really good tip for women actually is to think about what type of handbag you're going to take. I know that sounds really odd, but if, for example, you're in an informal setting, evening, and I'm talking like a glass of wine in one hand, there's nothing worse like, what are you going to do with this glass of wine when you need to shake somebody's hand? So, guys, if you've got a pocket or a jacket, then great, because ideally you want something with pockets because you want to. Business cards aren't as familiar as they used to be, but you need somewhere to be able to put business cards, is what I'm trying to say in a succinct way. And think about what you would like to get from that networking event when you come out, so you feel like it's been productive. You also asked me about sorry, Duggan, what was it? You asked me something else about when you get there. Oh, being stuck with someone. Yes.
Yeah.
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 So there is a different way of doing it. So have you ever heard about the elbow elbow top tip when it comes to networking? No?
No.
No.
No. I haven't.
Okay. So I've got to describe this because this is on a podcast rather than visual. So when you typically look at famous leaders, so if you go online, you'll have and type in Obama shaking hands, you will find that he shakes hands with one hand and puts his arm on the shoulder of the other. Now that is a very direct leadership inviting element. So the higher you go up with shaking somebody's hand, on the other, so you're shaking somebody's hand, on the other side you want to use your other hand to gently touch their elbow. Apparently it's something to do with childhood, being reassured. So if in a group of people and you're worried about one entering that group, you're feeling like you're on your own, a good way of doing it is touching somebody's elbow from the outside and saying, could I possibly join you? Yeah, because it's a non-aggressive way of doing it. Now, if you're already stuck with somebody that you'd like to move on, and say, you just say, look, it's really lovely to meet you, but I'm here, I'm very aware that I should be networking with come to meet some other people. Now you could either invite them along with you and say, should we go and meet some other people? Might be another way of doing it. Or you can end the conversation with, it was lovely to meet you. Let's connect offline, or through LinkedIn, or whatever way you want to do it. But that's quite a good way to kind of move on to something else.
Okay, great. And all right, so that's during the event. Post event, you've got some details, some business cards and things. What are your tips for what to do next?
Okay, number one, connect with them on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Not just for now. What I find, I've been with LinkedIn almost from the very start, actually. And what's quite interesting is obviously people move jobs quite frequently. So it means that you're always instantly connected with that person, even if the email becomes defunct. So you've kind of got both kind of ways. The other thing is to put them potentially into CRM system. But a real good no-go for me, which I, members still pick me up on it, is that a visitor will come and automatically add them to their mailing list. So just a quick thing to say that it can turn people off if you automatically do that. I think it's a nice thing to say, look, I'm connecting on LinkedIn. Would you be happy for me to add you to my mailing list, for example, rather than just automatically expecting it. So yeah, that would be my two go-tos. I think again, it really just depends upon the type of conversation that you had at the session. For example, if they wanted a quotation, then obviously it's a case of reconnecting, asking them, I would say within a week, if, for example, you offered a referral or a connection with somebody, or offered to put them in touch with somebody, I say no more than a week, 2 weeks max.
Right. Okay. Okay. And I guess I missed the most important thing. I suppose the most important thing is if you've got a bunch of business cards, connect with those that are relevant, because there'll be ones that you spoke to you don't want to connect with at all, and so put them in the bin, right?
No, Duggan, I think at the very bare minimum, connect with them on LinkedIn, because you never know where they end up. One of
Right.
my really best venue connectors actually worked in a venue that I didn't think about at all, and now works in one of the top London hotels. And it's because of that relationship that I built 3-4 years ago, that we have that relationship now. So I never kind of dismiss somebody, if you see what I mean, because there's a phrase, isn't there, that you think about the people that you want on the way up, because you never know where you're going to need them on the way down. So
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good point. No, Lizzie, I think you're right. Connecting with people on LinkedIn is a pretty easy way. You're not having to spend much time, and you're right. You never know. At first level connection, people might find you through them, and there might be a more relevant connection, that way. So no, that makes sense. And uh, right, Lizzie, one other thing I wanted to touch on, which I suppose networking really helps with, that is the best inquiries are referrals. Always.
Mhm.
In any business, anything, any form of anything to do with business, referrals are always the best form. And if you could, and there are some people that have over years, that's how they run their business, is purely through word of
Yeah,
mouth, referrals, but that's a form of networking. Like
yeah,
referrals
it's
can
true.
only come through
Yeah,
networking,
yeah,
and that can even be networking is such a big term really for lots of things. So, for
yeah,
example, um, you could run a business for 5 years and build up an amazing customer database. People you've done something for, might be once, might be
yeah,
on a repeat basis, and simply going to that database and just asking them for
yeah,
referrals, or testimonials and so on,
yeah,
is a form of networking, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. I think in marketing, they say that the best return on investment on any form of marketing is actually utilizing what you've already got in terms of customer database. So I think going back to the franchise element and model, you know, you might be in a franchise where you can upsell, for example, a particular product or service, in which case that is absolute gold, let's face it. Or you might have a referral incentive. You see it all the time, refer a friend. Those in fact, I had a message the other day from a carpet cleaner. I know that sounds like a really random one. Again, part of a franchise. And it was refer a friend and get £15 off, or
Yeah.
15% off. That to me again is a great way, because you when your friends, you go around your friends, they've just got dirty carpets. But if the conversation comes up, you're gonna suggest it. So it's with any form of marketing. I think it's so noisy marketing now. We automatically think of social media as being the go-to for marketing, when actually it's the more traditional forms of marketing. Again, it's still part of networking, direct mail. It's making a huge comeback, direct mail, because everybody's so fed up with receiving emails. yeah, there's loads of different ways that can you can reconnect with your customers. One of our members actually sends birthday cards. That's another really good way of reconnecting with people. Or ringing them after 3 months. You know, if you're part of a franchise that is very consumer led, actually it doesn't even have to be consumer led, it can be B2B, can't it? And just ring up and see if there's anything else that they're needing. Did they have a great service? Are they looking for anything else? And it's being at the forefront of that customer's mind that will really drive sales. And just think about, you know, you've had to do very little in terms of marketing investment as well then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I think you're right. Marketing is such a diverse, such a diverse thing, and it's very confusing actually. And people can get kind of drawn in and sucked into
Yeah, I think so.
the whole digital part of it, and what's right, and to spend money, but actually connecting with people, which you can only really do properly, through networking in the way that you talk about networking, getting people together, and actually having that social nature to it, but at the same time you're there to ask each other about what you do, and how you might be able to help each other ultimately, or people that and I think that does get forgotten. It gets forgotten, Liz.
Yeah.
And it's a shame really, because yes, I don't do it much, and I say that I don't proactively do it through networking groups. So, but I do a lot of networking within,
Naturally.
yeah, I think naturally, exactly that. So I think that's one thing, but certainly I think a lot of small business owners, um, in Norwich, in Birmingham, in the towns and cities around the country, don't know quite how to get themselves out there, and they get stuck on that, doing it all digitally, doing it all like through Google and Meta or Facebook and social
Yeah.
media, and everything else. And actually, if
It's
you go
that
and
human
attend these,
interaction, isn't it? I think
yeah, yeah,
networking is going back to the reason why I actually started going networking in the first place. It was that human interaction of feeling that I think when you run a business, particularly if you have employees, it's almost even lonelier because you're the boss. And actually, things that you want to talk about, you can't talk to your employees about. So it's I think one of the questions you asked me originally was, you know, you've just started a business. Actually, being part of a business community is really nice because you've got someone that may be going through the same experience as you, or you've got right up to the other end that somebody that's sold their business and has been and done it and will give advice on what to do, what not to do, because they've done it before. So you've got this real eclectic mix of different people that are kind of going through their business journey in lots of different ways.
yeah, yeah. No, exactly. That's absolutely right. So, well, look, Lizzie, I'm out of time. We're out of time, but I think it was I think that was great. It was really good to get some insight, into the world of networking. Where can, lastly, before we go, where can people find out more about what you do? What's the best place? I can see
The
your
logo.
URL on the screen, but
Yeah.
if you want to call that out, just so people can make sure they know where to go to look for you, that'd be great.
Sure. So first of all, we were talking about LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn, which is Lizzie Allen Phillips. Allen spelled Allen Phillips. But the actual networking organisation itself is I Want to Network, .co.uk or .com. And we've got loads of different networking top tips and blogs on our website as well. So if you've got any, I know we've talked about introverts today. So there's lots of different top tips on what to wear, not to wear, how to meet people, how to do your 1 minute business pitch. So feel free to download those as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, and that's I want the number two network.com. So I want to network.com. So just for everyone who can't quite make it out, or who are listening to it. So but Lizzie, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day.
And you, thank you very much.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.